and welcome to episode 19 of the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. As always, I'm your host, Luke SimBoxx, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by my esteemed co-host, Jamie. Jamie, how are we doing, man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I always love the introductions, man. Makes me feel like I'm up here. I'm buzzing. But yeah, no, I'm good, mate. I'm good. 19, man. We're pressing on, aren't we?
That's it. It'll be good to see when we're at the end of the year and we're in the 50s. So let's keep it going. We've had a couple of weeks away, as we were just saying there off camera. Not too much by way of action. We had this great card in Dublin just gone, but before that, it was a couple of quiet weeks. And there's nothing more we love in the Let's Talk Boxing podcast than getting our teeth sunk into some proper boxing action. And that's certainly we got what we got in Dublin this past weekend. Did you catch up with the show?
Yeah, I did. I managed to watch the card. I think I watched pretty much all of it, really. From the John O'Carroll fight onwards, so I managed to catch it all. It was yeah, no, it was a good cracking fight. There was a bit of a funny moment with the heavyweight fight
Yeah.
with the opponent. I know there's been a few jibes about that in the comments, but at the end of the day, yeah, respect for him getting in the ring, regardless of how he looked.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with that Dublin show then. Queensbury, headlined by Anthony Cacace against Jazza Dickens for the super featherweight world title. Shout out to John O'Carroll, your name you mentioned there. He's the guy that does the intro for the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. So, on a personal note, it was good to see John O get that win for the IBO title against Cole Murphy. And he's shown that there was life in the old dog just yet. I think he was brought in there as a stepping stone for the younger opponent in Murphy. And John O shown, like I said, he's a few tricks up his sleeve still.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time now. I know he's beat some names as well, but he's had a few losses rack up. And this was a bit of a, like you said, it was a fight. It was more for Murphy to go on and do better things, but Carroll come in and absolutely flipped the script. And to be fair, it was a well deserved victory. I think there weren't really moments in the fight where you thought he's not even in this. He looked like he was in, I wouldn't say complete control, but he was pretty much quite dominant in a way in most rounds, and it was a clear and obvious win. And well done to Jono, because he's going to be back in the mix now. He's got the IBO belt, even though he's not considered among the pristines of world champions, but he is now technically a world champion, and it's going to open more doors for him. I think he's probably going to have one big last fight left in him.
Definitely. It's mad to think that it was 6 years ago now that he retired Scott Quigg in Manchester. It was one of the first press conferences that I went to for SimBoxx and whatnot. Went down there, not really knowing what I was doing. I think I interviewed John O and Hughie Fiore and a couple of others. And yeah, 6 years ago that.
Yeah, and do you know what? I was quite upset that I was a big Scott Quigg fan, and it was a tough one to watch. But fair play to Carroll because he put on a show. But it wasn't nice to watch at the time of being a Scott Quigg fan.
It was good going off on a bit of a tangent. Like I said, it was the early days of SimBoxx and finding my feet with what we was doing. And I spoke to Scott down in Wythenshawe, at M22 Promotions, Joe Gallagher's promotional outfit. He'd done a few shows before the pandemic and he's not really come back with it, which is a shame. But anyway, down there, I was speaking to Scott Quigg and then I put the interview out and we spoke about John O'Carroll. Next minute, they're both going back and forth in the comments. So that was one of the few times where I thought, hey, we're going to blow up here. We're going to be massive. It was really good scene. And obviously the fight went the way it went and John O got the win. But anyway, like I say, we go off on a tangent. Pierce O'Leary stopping Maxi Hughes. Another one where you say there that you didn't feel too great with Scott Quigg getting beat by John O'Carroll. Maxi Hughes is a really good guy, and he takes his fight on short notice, replacing Mark Chamberlain on 4 weeks' notice, and he took a bit of a shellac in there over 6 rounds, didn't he? Pierce
Yeah, it
O'Leary
was.
was really good.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough watch in the sense of you like Maxi Hughes and like you said, a great guy. It was a bit of a tough watch, see him get so easily dismantled. But that's not taking anything away from Pierce there because he put on one hell of a performance, and he looks mustard, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him, and he should be definitely pushed by the Irish people as one of the new future stars coming through, because that was punch perfect, that performance, and to do it to Maxi Hughes of all people as well, it's no slouch. That I know he's had 4 weeks notice, and he's not exactly a young man anymore, but been in with some of the best in the game and put up such a good account of himself in the big losses that he's had as well against the big opponents. So that was it was bad to watch in one sense, but great to watch in the other. And yeah, like, I can't wait to see who he fights next, and I'll definitely be tuning in. He's definitely made a fan of me.
Yeah, I'll tell you something as well with that Mark Chamberlain fight that it was meant to be. I remember looking on, I think it was Sky Bet. There is other bookmakers available. I don't want to get myself in any trouble there. But I looked on Sky Bet for the pre-fight odds, and Pearce O'Leary, believe it or not, was the underdog against Mark Chamberlain. No disrespect to Mark Chamberlain, but I dare say if that fight gets remade for 2026, that we'll see a shift in their odds, and I think Pearce O'Leary would start a betting favourite against Mark Chamberlain.
Yeah, yeah, I think you'd have to. I think yeah, probably going into the fight, you probably think it was fair play in terms of them odds, but now that's again, it's completely flipped the script, and I think if you Chamberlain's team, you might want to maybe look at alternative opponents for your next fight.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Main event: Andy Cacace becomes a two-time world champion, defeating Jazza Dickens. Uh, Fair to say that the fight didn't deliver what we expected on paper. You looked at the two guys who had heart on the sleeves, both love to scrap. Cacace a bit more of a considered boxer maybe, and Jazza Dickens likes to come forward, slick southpaw, but he's on the front foot. But I think it's fair to say it didn't catch fire, did it, Jamie? It wasn't the fight that we was promised. It was even for you boxing purists, I was going to try and pull it out the flames there and say for the boxing purists, you'd enjoy it. He was always thinking maybe it's going to burst into life. It didn't. Slightly underwhelming, but all due credit to Andy Cacace in becoming a two-time world champion. Take nothing away from him.
Yeah, fair play to Kakachi. I think it was just, you know what, it was more of a tactical fight in the end. It turned out to be, and I think that came from a fact that Jazza Dickens respected Kakachi's power and respected and them long limbs of his. He had to get inside them limbs, and I think the way that he usually fights, that come forward, slick style, and likes to rough you up and get into a tear up. I think obviously the game plan was to work your way into them moments and them opportunities. And you could sort of see that was the game plan, but he just Kakachi didn't really give him anything. But it was a bit of I won't say it was a drab because it became a bit of a chess match, which I quite enjoy watching that. But I can understand from uh, people watching it that just tuning in to watch some action, it didn't deliver what we thought it would have done. But in terms of a tactical display, it was quite nice to watch, and some of the shots were really nice on the eye as well, especially the backhand from Jazza Dickens. He seemed to have quite a little bit of success with that, but at the end of the day, I think you looked at the telling shots and they came from Kakachi, and the shots that you remembered more were more Kakachi. And fair play to him. He's a two-time world champion, but my hat goes off to Tyler Dickens as well. Massive fan of him. Always loved him throughout. Hart wanted him to win, and I kept saying that. I was watching my mates, and so who you got? I said, Hart says Jazza, but my head's going Kakachi, and that's what it turned out in the end. But I'm quite glad because I thought Kakachi might have stopped him late, and he didn't. And Jazza put again a good account of himself. It just weren't a big firefight like we thought it was going to be.
Boxing can be such a cynical sport, and it's very rarely that the good guys get rewarded long term. And I think, regardless of the result on Saturday night, one thing that I did take from it was this was a celebration of two solid pros that have took the losses, took the time in the wilderness, stepped away from the spotlight. And we've seen Jazza Dickens take, I think, is it three or four losses, and Kakachi lost a few years back. They never really got those kind of big opportunities. And now, in the mid to late 30s, they're getting, that one big fight against each other. But it just felt like a real celebration of two solid pros in the day and age of misfits boxing and crossover fights and this, that, and the third. It was slagging boxing off week in, week out. These are two proper guys that have done it the hard way. And that was the one overriding feeling that I had on Fight Night that, these guys deserve this.
Yeah, it's one of them. It's a bit of a throwback now because, like you said, the new age of boxing, it's all social media heavy. It's who can draw the most on social media gets the opportunities, whether that's misfits or whether that the pro game, because the pro game's gone like that as well. It's all about how marketable you are in terms of getting opportunities. And they're a throwback to the old school, just working hard in the gym, fighting who gets put in front of you, climbing the ranks however way you must do, and sticking out even when it's not gone their way and they've not been the big high profile names that people wanted to go out and watch. And fair play, because I think as boxing keeps developing over the next few years, I think we're going to lose that them type of fighters. That well, not lose them, but we're not going to see as many of them on the bigger stages because they're the same type of people. You're not seeing them on social media, doing lives and trying to be an influencer in that regard. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame because that's the way boxing's going now. And like you said, hats off because it was two people that have worked so hard and one like catch. I didn't even realize. I forget he's 37.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's took this long now for him to be recognised as a big name, and like I said, but he's at the end of his career, and that's a bit of a shame as well because he's a good guy himself.
Absolutely. So if we was to pull out the Let's Stop Boxing crystal ball and look forward to what's next for either man, we'll just spend a couple of minutes and look at that. With Cacace, have we seen him potentially going in the mix with a Ray Ford, a guy that he was linked with previously, or maybe an Emmanuel Navarrete, who had a great win over Sugar Nunes a couple of weeks back? Have we seen him in unification fights? Have we seen him in another big domestic arena fight, maybe? What's your thoughts with Cacace and what's next?
I think if you could catch it, I think obviously you've got to make some good money having a big domestic fight. Probably in an arena in Ireland. It would go off that. But I think at his age, 37, and what he's accomplished, I think you've not got many big fights left in you at 37. I might be wrong. Look, he could maybe fight into his 40s for all we know. But at 37, you're usually at the tail end of your career. So I would probably go for a unification fight if I'm him. I would, and I'd probably look for maybe not Navarrete, maybe Ford. But I think either opponent that he fights, I think he's got a good chance with
Yeah.
against either of them. He's crafty. He's got such long levers, and he hits hard. So I think if I'm going to be a crystal ball, I would want to go for a unification fight. But in the day, money talks, don't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for what it's worth, I'd go for Emmanuel Navarrete. I think his stock's never been higher coming off that Sugar Nunes win. And like you say, if Cacace's going to bow out anytime soon, he might as well bow out in a blaze of glory. And maybe if he gets his name up in lights in Vegas or Phoenix or something like that, and take a big the Andy Town Apache crowd over with him and have a big American date to see out his career, that'd be a great story. As for Jazza Dickens, I think one fight that I've seen rumored about or talked about on social media, which, where most of the rumors take place nowadays. If Nick Ball was to step up from featherweight to super featherweight, a Jazza Dickens, Nick Ball clash, all Liverpool affair, that'd sell some tickets at the M&S Bank Arena.
I would go off that, to be fair, wouldn't it? I think I would genuinely go off. But I don't know. Do you see Nick Ball moving up?
Well, I've said before, and I don't want to jump the gun here and contradict myself. I've said before, like I don't see him moving up. That was just the rumors that I'd
No, I
seen
know.
on TV.
Yeah, it would be a great fight to watch. I'm just thinking, just with obviously he's not a big, he's big that way in his division, but he's not tall for his current division. But no, I would be up for that. But I think if you Jazza Dickens, maybe not a big last fight like that, but maybe a homecoming fight himself.
Yeah.
Like Crawler had in Manchester, even though he came up short. He's been in the game long enough, and he's got a solid hardcore boxing fan base. So I think, maybe one last dance in Liverpool at the M&S, maybe not as the main event, but as chief support, going out, hopefully with a win against an opponent that sounds wrong to say, but an opponent that he's probably going to go in and beat and go off into a swan song. Because I think I love Jazza. I'd hate to see like him go in and get absolutely obliterated by a ball. I'm not saying he would, but off the careers, you probably would think that Ball would probably stop him quite devastatingly, and I wouldn't want to see that for Jazza's last fight.
I think for me, Jazza Dickens, and it's a fight. If Jazza wanted to step down a level from obviously being a former world champion now, which again is another great story. Josh Padley, European champion. If he wanted to see where Josh Padley was at, if Josh Padley was to go in there and get a win against Jazza Dickens, he elevates himself into a world title contention. So I think Josh Padley would make a lot of sense for Jazza Dickens, and then obviously Josh Warrington and Lee Wood, we're still debating whether or not they're going to stick around. So if you're looking at, like you say, chief supports or co-main events or domestic grudge matches, I think between Josh Padley being the up-and-comer, Lee Wood, Josh Warrington, and Jazza Dickens in that mix, I think, if these guys are still going to mix it, similar to when we talk about Chisora and Wilder making a lot of sense, I think Jazza Dickens can put himself in the mix there with Josh Warrington and
Yeah,
Lee
that would
Wood.
make
I think there's a
sense. That,
few
yeah, I'd
good
like
fights
that.
to be
Yeah.
had there. But who are we? We're just a Let's Stop Boxing podcast. We make it make so much sense on there, and it never plays out that way.
No,
But
you'd like to think boxing would be that. Maybe we're in the wrong game. Maybe we should stop podcasting and start promoting.
yeah, that's the one. Let's clear up some of the news that we've missed. So we're going to backpedal over the past couple of weeks or so. Alexander Usyk against Rico Verhoeven for the WBC heavyweight world title, going to take place in the Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Jamie, talk to me.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, what's going on? Do you know what? I can't hate on it though, because obviously Joshua had his fight with Ngannou, and Fury had his fight with Ngannou. But the only difference was it weren't for the WBC heavyweight title. And I think again that's just where the WBC come in, and it's just like fuck off. You're just a joke. No disrespect to Rico, but you can't have somebody fighting for a world title that's had one boxing match 6, 7 years ago against somebody with a losing record. Just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, they're going to get a nice chunk of money from it. But at the end of the day, I don't begrudge Usyk doing it because he's gone out there, he's achieved what he's had. And yeah, he probably deserves
Yeah,
one little easy fight, a bit of a crossover gimmick fight. And he's probably going to win quite easily. And I just find it mad that he's at the Pyramids of Giza. That it's just blowing my mind. When I see it, it's like at the Pyramids of Giza. I'm just trying to picture how they're going to set it up, like what it's going to look like, what the stadium's going to look like, and but yeah, that it just
and
sounds
surely,
really
with
mad.
it being in May as well, surely it's going to be in the dead of night because it's going to be red hot.
Oh
Let's
yeah, it's got to
get
be.
it's going to be red hot, so it's going to be in the dead of night local time. Like you say, depending on how they dress it up, it's going to look so extravagant. It's going to be insane. I think again, I'm with you here, Jamie. I think Usyk deserves or has earned the right to take one of these fights, but don't hold up the titles. And he's never going to say, "Oh, I'm going to voluntarily give it up and help everybody else." That's not his job. It's the job of the sanctioning body. And in
Yeah,
this instance, it's the WBC and it's Mauricio Soleimani who's coming for a hell of a lot of stick with the Ryan Garcia situation, the Conor Benn situation, now this. And it's just like, come on, can you not see the wood from the trees? You know, he's
yeah,
being
yeah,
ridiculed
yeah.
left, right, and centre. Make him champion in recess, put the title on the line for Caballero in his next fight. And if and when Usyk wants to come back to real boxing, with all due respect, then he fights Caballero. Dead simple. Why is it not that
Yeah.
straightforward? And you know
But
why it's not?
it's not that
Oh,
straightforward
no.
either, because Usyk didn't mention Caballero in his preferred last three fight options, which I didn't understand the three options that he put out. I'll be honest with you, I
Yeah, but
didn't.
that was one of the things I was going to get into, so we'll get on to that. So he says, I think he was talking to, was it Max Kellerman he was talking to? And he says, my
Yeah,
next three
yeah,
fights
and Devin
is,
Haney as well, of all people.
yeah, so Rico, then the winner of Fabio Wardley against Daniel Dubois, then a trilogy with Tyson Fury. If he goes out on those three fights, no matter what he's done at cruiserweight, what he's done at heavyweight, he's gonna, and I'm talking like in the minuscule percentages, taint his legacy for me because he's chasing the money at the wrong time of his career in terms of you've got to give back. You know, Anti Joshua give him he makes no secret of Anti Joshua giving me that opportunity as the mandatory challenger to the WBO. He didn't vacate the belt, and then Usyk fought somewhat of a nobody for the title. The defending champion defended against the challenger in Usyk. Usyk's now got to give back to the sport and take on your Fabio Wardleys, take on your Ajit Caballeros. You know, he's earning good money. Let's not mince our words here. He's earned great money against Joshua, against Fiore, and against Dubois. So we're not talking about someone that needs to claim the riches at the end of his career. He's got plenty of money in the bank. He goes out on
Yeah.
those three fights, doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of the three that he chose, and at the same time, it's one of them like you've earned the right to have this fight with Rico, but then I don't think you've earned the right to then say to not fight Caballero and have your mandatory fight with Caballero, or to even have a mandatory fight with. He doesn't deserve this, but even Gassiev, as a WBA regular champion, they've got to have a fight at some point. So you are kind of holding up the division, and you'd hold up the division more with them two fights. And I think in reality, now, do it probably, I think, I don't want to predict this, but probably Daniel it's going to be Daniel Dubois that he fights. And do we really want to see a Daniel Dubois trilogy? I don't.
Well, that's it.
Uh,
But from Fabio, let's say if we're batting for the team Fabio Wardley here, Fabio Wardley has gone and beat Justice Hunter, he's beat Joseph Parker, and now he's been elevated into full WBO heavyweight world champion. Are we then being told that he's got to go into what's muchly considered to be a 50-50, 60-40 in his favour shootout with Daniel Dubois, one of the most dangerous heavyweight punchers in the division, to then earn the right to fight Alexander Usyk coming off the back of stopping Joseph Parker? Like, where's the sense in that? Somebody
yeah,
that
I know it don't make
Usyk's already
sense,
beat
but
twice.
I think the only way I would enjoy it if Wardley gets the victory, then I've no qualms with Usyk
Yeah.
fighting Wardley. If Dubois gets the victory, then I've got an issue with that because I don't want to watch that. But going on your point there about Wardley, it is mad in it that he's been the underdog in his last two fights and weren't really supposed to win them, and he's come out and won. And like you said, his reward for beating Daniel Dubois is he's got to go and fight Alexander Usyk in another tough one. It is mad because he really should have had the fight in the first place without having to fight Daniel Dubois anyway. And he puts a lot on the line when he should have been having a massive undisputed fight really with Alexander Usyk. So, but for me, if it's Wardley Usyk, I'm happy with that. But then I don't really want to watch Usyk Fury. I think the winner of the Wardley Usyk should then fight Caballero if he's still the mandatory at that point, which he might not be. But yeah, I think in all honesty, we're at the point where the governing body should step in. Like the WBA should probably go, right, you're fighting this Rico now. We can't keep waiting around. You're probably going to fight for the WBO belt and defend that after this. So we'll just put Gassiev as the WBA mandatory champion and then get him a fight with somebody, whether that could be Mosey Atama, yeah. And then it frees up the division. And we've got some big fights coming in because Usyk's not going to stick around for long, neither's Fury or AJ. And then the next generation can all bang out for the titles and they'll all be split open. And that's what's best for boxing, but what's best for boxing doesn't always come off.
But that's the thing, though, in Usyk is built his name. I've seen a couple of things online saying that Usyk isn't a marketable commodity without a Dubois at Wembley or without a Fury in Saudi. I think Usyk's a big enough name in his own right now that if he vacated these belts and went and chased the money, went and chased a trilogy with Tyson Fury down the line, you could put him and Tyson Fury on the moon, it'd sell. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't need the belts at this stage. Like the
No.
younger, hungrier fighters. Let them come through and seize their opportunity. But we'll see how that plays out, and I'm sure we'll get back onto that subject in May ahead of the fight. Another heavyweight fight that was made, and somebody else that's in line for a world title shot at some stage is Lawrence Okolie against Tony Yoka. This, for me, the timing of the announcement, the location of the fight, and ultimately the opponent in Tony Yoka for Okolie took me by somewhat of a surprise, Jamie. I didn't see this one coming with it landing in Paris.
No, I didn't. When it was announced, I was a little bit like, oh, that's a bit strange. Because I never thought he would be fighting Tony Yoka. Certainly didn't think it would be in Paris. But then again, he just fought in Nigeria, didn't he? So, which again, that was a bit out there. So maybe Okolie's taking that step of, just doing crazy, mad stuff to stay maybe relevant in a way. Like that's his way of staying relevant in the heavyweight division, not doing what everybody else is doing and going out and taking fights in places you don't really expect him to be fighting. But just picking Yoka was a bit of a wild one there because I don't think a win over Tony Yoka is going to cement him up there as going for a mandatory position with one of the four governing bodies. So it's a bit of a strange one, but I suppose it's a good fight for him at heavyweight because he's not really fought anybody, has he, of note? Whereas at least we know with Tony Yoka, he's a good, decent heavyweight fighter. He's not the biggest, but he's an Olympic gold medal by certain things. But he's got good boxing ability. So I think it will see. Sort of see where a call is at, maybe, but it was definitely took me by surprise, and I think it's one he should easily win, really, shouldn't he?
Yeah, but that's the curveball, if you like, in this fight for me is that if he goes over to Paris, I can't imagine it being great money. So if he goes over to Paris, gets the win, and then he carries on with his career, it doesn't really elevate him. But if he beats Yoka, which he should, and that's the argument there, he should beat Yoka, so he's not going to really gain any credit for it. Matt Bacoli took Yoka's soul. Carlos Takam, and over the hill, Carlos Takam, with all due respect, beat Tony Yoka, and then I think he lost a third time as well. So I think it's lose-lose in a way for Okolie because Okolie's never one that's going to look too pretty on the eye. So if he does win, it's not going to be a fantastic opponent, a fantastic performance against an opponent that he should beat. Whereas Yoka's got it all to gain, and then interestingly, from Yoka's point of view, like you say, he's had those three losses. He's on the comeback trail somewhat. Was going to be the anti-Joshua for France at one point in time. That's not really happened. Is this a cash-out fight for him? Because he's gone in as a sizable underdog against the Cole. Is he hoping that he's going to skip the queue maybe with it if he does get the win? I don't know, but we'll wait to see how that plays out come April 25th. I think it is out in Paris. From one fight to another that we missed the announcement of, Conor Benn against Regis Prograis will serve as co-main event to Tyson Fury against Aslanbek Makhmudov at Wembley, April 11th. Yeah, this is muddied some already muddied waters. So this fight is due to take place on Netflix, of course. It was the whole hoorah of Conor Benn signing himself for $15 million. We're not going to go into that, but now the complications are coming from whether or not this is going to count as that fight with Zuffa, and if it's on the Ring magazine card, Eddie's not too fond of it, and there's going to be a whole load of red tape around this. So we'll just stick to the fight. I think we'll let the red tape stuff play itself out. Conor Benn taking on Regis Prograis, a former champion at 140 pounds. He's bringing him up to 150 pounds. Underwhelming, to say the least, Jamie, as an opponent for Conor Benn. I think
I
if this fight had
I
been
think
made
it's
under
shit.
Matchroom, yeah.
I
If this
think
was
it's
under
shit.
Matchroom, imagine sorry to cut you off here, but imagine the uproar if Conor Benn's first fight after Chris Eubank, after the calling out of Ryan Garcia and everybody else, with all due respect to Regis Prograis at this stage of his career, 150-pound catch weight. It leaves a little bit to be desired.
I think it's shit. I think it's shit.
Go on,
Really
Jamie.
shit. And I'm not gonna fucking mince my words. That's shit. No, and it sounds bad on Prograis. It's not. It is not a dig at Prograis. It's a dig at Conor Benn, really, because that is shit. And I'm not being funny. You've just gone from fighting at 168, right? Making your opponent have a rehydration clause. Now you're gonna go down to 150, but you're gonna get a 140 fighter to come up to 150 who's never fought at 147, let alone obviously at a catch weight of 150, who's, let's be real, over the hill now as well. Um, Bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And I tell you what, I won't be sold Wolf tickets because that's what this is. This is trying to sell the public Wolf tickets for Conor Benn because in reality, he is not that good. Like, well, sorry, he's good, but he's not world champion good at this moment in time. He might be because we don't know because he's never fought anybody of real note. But this isn't one of them fights where you're like, right, yeah, this is going to prove who Conor Benn is and what is. It's a backward fight for me. I think it's an absolute backward fight, and I think it's a joke, and I think it's hypocrisy for him to sit there and demand these rehydration clauses, and then you're going to come and fight a 140 fighter, and you return back to 147, which you can't make, so you're doing it at 150. No, it's fucking bollocks. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. Because and the mad thing is, right, is from a PR point of view, yeah, he's going to be paid, but I don't think Team Ben are aware or, quite frankly, asked about the way everything's being played out. Let's look at it. So he beats a weight drain Chris Eubank Jr. at 160 pounds, and he's dined out on that. And then he's talking about potentially doing a trilogy fight up at 168 if that's what Eubank Jr. wants to do. It's not going to happen, right? Then he says, when I choose, I'll go back down to 147 and I'll beat, at the time, Barrios or Ryan Garcia. Of course, Ryan Garcia went and beat Barrios. So now he's saying, I'll go back down and I'll beat Ryan Garcia at 147. I'm not going to fight Lewis Crocker for the IBF 147 title because I don't want to do the rehydration clause, which is an absolute contradiction.
Yeah.
So he doesn't go back down to 147, which is advisable. Coming from 160 back to 147, take a catchweight fight, no problem. But we have a division in between 147 and 160, and it's called 154. And there's a guy sat there called Josh Kelly that'll stand him on his head. So he expertly diverts from 154 and makes his catchweight fight at 150. And I think from the outside looking in, you've got to be going, come on, guys. Don't be selling us
Yeah.
this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, we're not
Yeah.
stupid.
You can't sell the hardcore boxing fans this bullshit. Some of the casuals might eat it up, might do, but I'm telling you now, the hardcore boxing casuals, I guarantee most of them seen it were like, what the fuck? Shout out proper boxing because I think he did something about it. He mentioned something about it, and he as soon as it was announced, he was like, "What the fuck is this?" It just doesn't make any sense, and the hypocrisy of it all has done my head in. Like you said, avoiding Lewis Crocker, carefully navigating away from Josh Kelly at 154. It's like they know the chances of him beating these are 50-50 to maybe 30-70 in the other fighter's favour. And he's such a marketable tool on the back of them Chris Eubank fights. But let's be real, Chris Eubank brought him the marketability that they need him to be. And he's a bit Jake Paul, isn't it? It's a bit Jake Paul, getting fighters that are, aging and bringing them out of weight divisions that they're not used to fighting in. Um, but then he'll be like, well, I beat Regis Prograis. He was a world champion. He's only lost to Devin Haney and he went 12 rounds. I put him out. That's what will happen here. If he goes and stops Prograis, everyone will jump on it and be like, wow, Conor Benn's and be like, it's amazing. Told you he could go and be a world champion. This fight doesn't prove anything of how good Conor Benn is. But I'll tell you what might happen, and I hope it does. I hope Prograis can just rewind the clock for one last fight and put on a bit of a boxing performance where he might not win because the legs might not take in the distance, but he shows vulnerabilities in Conor Benn's game because there is plenty of vulnerabilities, and that's why we're not seeing big fights at this stage. I think they still need to put him in with fighters where they build him up for that big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We're going to coin that phrase now. We're here on the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. It's a bit Jake Pauley. Whenever we have a fight that we're not sure of, we'll call it.
Yes.
It's not Jake. It's too Jake Pauley, that one. So we're keeping that. As we move on, what we got to talk about? Oh, briefly on Tom Aspinall signing with Matchroom Talent Agency. I thought that was, Eddie was playing chess while Dana White was playing checkers there. I thought he's obviously not bringing Tom Aspinall over to box. He signed him as a talent agency. He's going to kind of manage him and help him get opportunities in the UFC. Wise move in the fact that Eddie now is privy to UFC negotiations and how Dana White and those guys, is it Hunter or whatnot, the guys over at UFC, how they do business. I think that's a sensational move by Eddie. And he says obviously he's not going to manage boxers because it's a conflict of interest. You're not allowed to do that in the States. It's frowned upon in the UK. So he's not going to be managing boxers. He says it's going to be footballers, athletes, actors, whatever. But Tom Aspinall to Matchroom Talent Agency, the time of it was perfect. And yeah, chess while playing checkers.
Yeah, it was definitely. It was just a bit of a, you know what? You play your cards, I'll play mine now, and it was a cheeky little move that from Eddie Hearn, and I like it because obviously Dana's done his. He's had to get in there with people so that he understands how the boxing game works, and Eddie Hearn's just gone and done exactly the same, and it was a perfect move because he's picked the fighter that Dana White was digging out. He was digging him out, you know what I mean, for the all or the eye poke situation. So it was a smart, clever move getting him in, and the fair play, Eddie, like, because you've not just took a bit of a beating there. You've got back up and gone, all right. Well, I'll fight back. I'm not going out without swinging. And it was a good little move.
You know what? I think it's proper interesting the way this is playing out with Eddie and Dana. And I'm not sure if they're behind the scenes kind of, texting each other like, oh, you say this and I'll say that, because it does seem to be getting a bit personal. But at the same time, I do think obviously controversy sells. So it's kind of, six of one, half a dozen of the other. But the way it's kind of playing out and the stuff Dana White's coming out with, I keep saying that we're going to do a Zuffa boxing special, and the time's just not come for it because I'm just not sold on him just yet. But you hear Dana White say that Eddie Hearn's the biggest pussy in boxing. Eddie Hearn's not really doing much for boxing. Boxing's dead. I'm going to take over. This is the way things are going to go. But 4 shows in, he's doing, York Hall level crowds. He's put on some good fights. There's been some evenly matched fights. But if you're looking long term, none of these shots, I think he had 4 or 5 events so far. None of these fights, win, lose, or draw, are leading to anything else. I think it's such a short term, short time frame, short time span project. It's not leading anywhere. There's no, right, this guy's going to beat him, so we'll fight him, and he drew with him, so he should beat him. There's nothing going on. Whereas you look at Eddie and he's building stars. Dalton Smith, perfect example. Anthony Joshua from the Olympics to unified world champion. Dana White, it's all well and good saying let's put 3-0 against 5-0, but when that 3-0 gets stopped in 2 rounds and doesn't fancy the game anymore, well, there's one star gone. You know what I mean? The UFC model doesn't work in boxing. I think that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, no, it probably doesn't work in boxing, but I am quite keen to see how it does play out because if in some way it can work, because the one thing that we've been saying about boxing for a long time is they need to sort the rankings out, and plenty of people over the years have said, why can't they just be like the UFC where when rank 3 fights rank 5 and rank 5 wins, he goes to rank 3, and like it's weird, but then we sat here saying, "Oh, it's watching Dana trying to do it like it's not, it doesn't really work." But it's also
I think
still
it's
quite.
horses for courses for me, man. I think when you get to a certain level, of course, like for instance, Usyk, in the UFC, Usyk would have fought Wardley next, So at that kind of level, I agree. But I think there's got to be
But the
some
smaller
scope,
levels is
etc.
where,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the problem because. But boxing's always been built on building up your fighter first and getting him used to the pro game and getting him stepping up from 4 rounders to 6 to 8 to 10, and then going on obviously becoming a 12 round fighter. Because the difference is you can't going from 3 3 minute rounds to 3 12. Not many people can do that jump straight away, no matter how fit you are, because it's a totally different ball game. So you do need to have that element of building them up. But we are a bit thingy when it comes to like building them up maybe too long.
Yeah,
You do see some fighters when they're coming in at like 33 and all.
yeah,
Like Wilder, prime example, when before he really fought anybody of any decent note, he was already like 38 and all. But you couldn't name any of the 38 fighters that he'd fought really. Um, so in that regard, in some regard, it's like, yeah, there's got to be a moment where, you're not 38 and all and finally getting your big opportunity. Um, I don't know. It's a weird one, is it? Because you don't want to rush people too soon, but you need to know where people are at.
yeah.
But Eddie, I give fair play to Eddie because he seems to know when to make the move to see if you're ready or not.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like they say, there's certain parts of it to support from Zuffer and what they want or what they're trying to do. I think it's the contradictions. We're not going to recognise the titles, but then we will recognise the titles, and we're going to build the stars for tomorrow. But then they're signing a Conor Benn that's 30, they're signing a Jai Pattaya at 30. So it's the contradiction sometimes, I think, and also the fact that we're hardcore boxing fans. We've been around for 20 plus years, and people much older than us have been around for much longer, and you kind of got this outside project, if you like. They're saying your sports shit, your sports fucked. It's no good. We're going to take over. You're kind of like, no, we're kind of all right over here. We've got our Wembley shows and this, that, and the other. There's a lot wrong with boxing, but there's also a lot right with it. And I think that's kind of the bit that's kind of souring the grapes. That we're not that bad when you're putting on events that are akin to COVID shows. That's what it feels like. When we was coming back from
Yeah,
COVID and it was limited crowd. So, all the best to Dana and what he's doing over there, but I think ultimately this idea of doing a league and whatnot, I think that's all going to go away. And Zuffa Boxing will turn out to be just another promotional outfit, and they'll all start doing shows with each other. There's too much money on the table. Jai Pattaya is going to want to fight Zerdo Ramirez or David Benavidez when they fight, and Conor Benn's going to want to fight Ryan Garcia, and there needs to be mixing of the waters, and eventually I think they'll just turn out to be another
yeah,
powerful, wealthy promotional outfit. And yeah, we'll wait to see how that plays out. And hopefully, one day we will sit down and kind of dissect the whole Zuffa boxing idea. Let's close out with some previews because there's a few good fights on this weekend. We'll start with Friday night out in Belfast. Mick Conlon, 34 years of age now. He's trying to get back into the mix at featherweight. He's taking on somewhat of an unknown quantity in Kevin Walsh, 19-0, 10 knockouts. Is Mick Conlon ever going to get that world title in your opinion, Jamie?
no. That dead horrible as well. No, I don't mean it like that, but I think his time's passed him by, and it's a bit of a shame really because he's very talented, very talented. But he's he still fights like an amateur, doesn't he? The way he boxes, he's still very much got that amateur style in him, and I think at the upper levels of the pro game, it's hard to maintain that level of fighting and not get clipped and not tire. And I think that's been his problem. And he's lost some big fights to some big knocks to big stoppages. I just think as good as he is, he's just not going to make it to the world title stage. And that's no disrespect for him because he's still had a great career.
He's going to be in that
Um,
mix anyway. Your Harold Grahams and your Jamie Moores or whatnot of the
yeah,
best
yeah, he'll be
traditional Irish
yeah.
fighters never to win a world title.
Yeah, you're going to be highly rated,
Yeah.
and he's still one of the best boxers Ireland's actually produced. You can't take that away from him, even just because he's not won a world title. But it's a shame that he never won one because when you look at his boxing ability, he's one fighter where you'd be like, he should have. He might still, but I can't see it. But he's one where you're like, he should have been a world champion. Watch the way
No,
he
again,
fights and watching him.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to be here like we're shitting on Michael Conlon because I think he's going to go out and get the win on Friday night, and I wish him the very best. He's a good guy, he's a good talker, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. So we're not taking our opportunity here to shit on Michael Conlon in any way, shape, or form. We're just speaking from the heart. And I think there's one name that stops Michael Conlon winning a world title because apparently he wants to go down the WBC route, and at the top of that WBC ladder is Shushu Carrington. We spoke about him back in January when he won that world title on the Shakur Stevenson Teofimo Lopez card. You don't want to see Shushu Carrington next.
No.
Shushu is the real deal. I'm big on Bruce Carrington, and if that's the route to a world title for Michael Conlon, then he's going to fall short, and he's going to fall way short in that objective.
What's that? Sorry, Bob.
I was just saying that I think he'll fall
It
way
just cut
short.
out.
He'll fall way short against Shushu Carrington, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah, shoot. He's a different level, man, and he's one that I did again. Like we were spoke about him last time. He's one I'm a huge fan of now. Watching his last couple of fights, and yeah, he's dangerous him. So yeah, stay clear.
On Saturday night, a good solid domestic clash for the British and Commonwealth middleweight titles. George Liddard undefeated against the ever game former champion, former European middleweight champion Tyler Denny headlines the Matchroom card on DAZN. Good fight this. Good fight for George Liddard. Coming in off that stoppage win over Kieran Conway. No one's really done that to Kieran. No, he's kind of like the yardstick at British title level, and he surpassed that. And then he goes in with a former European champion with the titles on the line. Looking forward to another big performance from George Liddard.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good fight. I think it's another one where you're looking at George to win, but it's the performance that he's going to put in, which is going to be the thing that we're all looking at here now. No disrespect for Tyler Denny, but I think when you're looking at it on paper, Liddard, it should be a victory for him. The man of the victory is what we're going to be looking out for now, and I think it could be. I think Tyler will have quite a bit of success in it, but then I think Liddard will adapt, and I think you'll see sides of Liddard where what his actual boxing ability is like, and he's very good, and I think it will shine through. I think this is a perfect fight for him. I think it's a fight that's going to cause him a few troubles where he's going to have to get his boxing brain going. But once it gets going, I think he'll obviously go on and win the fight. But I'm interested to see how it will play out because you never know if he could get a few moments that become sticky and he might not know how to deal with it. So, Tyler could pull up an upset in that regard. But yeah, no, I'm liking it. I think it's a good step up fight for him.
Definitely we look forward to that. And then on Saturday night in the early hours, UK time over in Orlando, we've got Carlos Adamez finally defending his WBC world middleweight title against Austin Amo Williams. This for me is a good clash of styles and one that I wasn't too fond of maybe 18, 12 months ago or so. But Adamez with that performance against Hamza Shiraz, he looks a real dangerous fighter, and I think Austin Amo Williams is now finally realizing his potential. It all goes down in Orlando on Saturday night. Is that a fight you're looking forward to, Jamie?
Yeah, no, I like Adamez, and I think it's a good clash of styles. It's interesting to see how this will play out. I think Adamez will win it. Um, I'd like to see where he goes after this fight if he does win it, because he certainly needs. I think he deserves a nice big unification fight himself. But that's not. I'm not. I don't. It's one I don't actually know who will probably win this one. I'm leaning more towards Carlos Adames, but Amo Williams isn't no mug himself, and he can certainly pull off the victory. But so it'd be interesting to see how this one plays out. It's definitely one that I'll have to wake up the next day for. I don't think I'm going to stay up for it in all honesty, but I will definitely catch. I'll put it on get it the old record, and then get watching that first thing in the morning with me brew and biscuits.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Shout out to Kieran Farrell there with the brewing biscuits. But yeah, that's episode 19 in the books of the Let's Talk Boxing podcast, guys. As always, if you can leave us a like, a share, a review, follow us across all social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's all appreciated. It all helps with the algorithms. He's been Jamie. I've been Luke, and we'll see you on episode 20 next week.